Okay. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I think it's morning everywhere that's logging in. We are so glad to have you with us. Welcome. Welcome to the webinar. Welcome to one of our exciting topics here. We have a whirlwind to share with you that we've prepared about Microsoft 365. Kind of like visiting 10 cities in 3 days. Chris has put together, I don't know this is his favorite topic. I think fit is his favorite topic, but this has got to be his second favorite topic, Azure and Microsoft 365. So today, Chris is going to focus on the 365 elements. What is it? Everyone talks about it. Everyone acts like they know what it is. And we know that a lot of people just aren't really clear what's involved with that 365 product. So Chris is going to talk about that. Again, 10 cities, 3 days. But I think what you'll find is as Chris wraps this up, he's got some great slides at the end that give some really clear guidelines on what some of these might have tickled your fancy as you hear them, what steps you can take. So don't feel overwhelmed, just keep listening. And we'll be offering this again at a later date if there are other people on your team that you think should check this out as well. So right now, I will turn it over to Chris and we'll get started. A few logistics, you are muted. Everyone will be muted. At the end, we'll take questions. So if you want to pile those up throughout the seminar or webinar, put those in there. I'll bring those out at the end, but we will do those after Chris is done. All right, Chris, it's all yours.
All right, great, thanks. I'm going to go ahead and turn off my camera and share my screen here. And sorry, my started the presentation and it hid my thing to share my screen. Let me try this again. All right. So
you got it. We can see you.
Beautiful. All right. Well, again, everybody, thank you for joining us today. We're going to go through a little tour of Microsoft 365. I think somebody.
Chris, yeah, can you double mic? Thanks.
Okay. All right. So today there's myself and Kathy are going to be on here, just kind of talking about everything and for related to 365, how it's going to impact you and what it really is. So what is Microsoft 365? Microsoft 365 is a suite of innovative apps and intelligent cloud services and world-class security all tied together with one cohesive login. So that pretty much sums up today's webinar. We're all set. I think that explains it. I'm just kidding. So it is a big package of tons of different apps, tons of different cloud services that can do a lot. And they name different packages that include different things. And we're going to be focusing mostly on the Microsoft 365 flavor. So what a lot of people think of it as is the business apps. So your Word, your Outlook, your Excel, your PowerPoint, these are what a lot of people are used to seeing as Microsoft 365. That is included. There's also your cloud services. Some people think about it like that. Teams has been in the news a lot recently. There's been lots of talk of that. OneDrive, SharePoint, Exchange Online. So we'll go through these in a little more detail later on. And then there's also a pretty big suite of business security tools in Microsoft 365. These are very powerful. It's a big chunk of what it can do. And they get very technical. I'm very excited about them. All you need to know really is that it's going to keep you secure. We'll touch on them just briefly. So we're talking today about Microsoft 365, but what about Office 365? So Microsoft 365 is our group of business apps, cloud services, business security, and all of that. Office 365 is generally just the apps and cloud services. For some people, this may still be appropriate. A lot of people are moving to the Microsoft 365 tier. Those extra security tools are almost always worth it. It's pretty rare that they're not. Microsoft does also love to change the names on things a little bit. Every once in a while, something will move between them. But the Microsoft 365, the biggest difference is it includes more of those ancillary features that are going to have really help you stay secure and manage your whole environment. So there's a ton of different packages within the 365 world. One option is you just get things by the service. So this would be something like you are just getting OneDrive, nothing else, no other feature, just OneDrive by itself. This is not all services are available that way, and it's probably the least cost efficient way for the core services, at least. The things that I just had up there, the apps and Teams and email and all of that, those core services, when you do them one by one, they get pretty expensive pretty quickly. It's usually worth the packages. There are some add-ons where it does make sense to do that, but we'll go through those a little later on. The Microsoft 365 business flavor. So you may have heard of these like Microsoft 365 Business Standard, Microsoft 365 Business Basic. That's kind of the flavor. This includes a wide array of apps, cloud services, and cloud services included. There are awesome security features. It's designed specifically for small to medium-sized business. So I think from Microsoft's perspective, everyone on our call today is going to fall into this category. So it's got a ton of stuff packed into one kind of, this is going to be great for people in around this size. It is by far the biggest bang for your buck. You get so many things with not a lot of, you get so many things included. It's awesome for pretty reasonable cost. There is a limit on the Microsoft 365 business line of a max of 300 licenses. So many people here today, I think that you'll be fine with that. Every once in a while, there's somebody gets a little over that. That is a consideration that you need to keep in mind if you're looking into these. This is Syscon's favorite, Microsoft 365 business line. You may have heard us talk about it on some meeting or another. It's what we use ourselves. It's a really great, it's a really good thing, and we think it's usually a good fit for most of our clients. There's also the Microsoft 365 Enterprise, or for Office 365 Enterprise, both Microsoft 365 or Office. This is kind of the next flavor of packages, and this flavor has typically higher service limits, and then there's no limits on licenses. So if you're over 300 people, this is really where you need to start looking. So over 300, don't even think about the business line. Under 300, which should be most of us today, most likely that's going to be where you land. Within that lineup, there's a few different packages, but just knowing the Microsoft 365 business flavor is going to be a great starting point and really narrows it down for you. So why now? Why are we talking about Microsoft 365 now after it's been around for years? What's changed? Global pandemic. There's more remote work than ever. People are being asked to do more from home. They're asked to get access to shares and stuff like that, and they never had a VPN set up. There were so many people frantically trying to get remote work. The Microsoft 365 platform focuses on an any style, which is any platform, any device. So a Mac, PC, your work computer, your home computer, your cloud computer. It's designed to work pretty seamlessly between those different environments, which pairs really well when you have a surprise of, hey, your entire staff is going to start working remotely with 1 day's notice. The platform, the Microsoft 365 platform over the last few years has really matured. They've added some awesome features. They've added some awesome security, some great reliability enhancements. It's really come a long way over the last few years. 4 years ago, this really was not my favorite product. 3 years ago, it was getting a little better, but over the last year or two, it's really come to, we think is a very mature and great platform. the whole concept of chat is starting to become an essential business tool. So before, every once in a while people would have like these kind of one-off chat apps that you never really heard about, but now Slack, Teams, Zoom, Google Meets, all of these things, being able to just send quick chats between each other has basically become an essential piece with the remote work or not. There are plenty of times someone's in an office next to me and I'm still sending them a chat message as opposed to walking over. The Teams application is one of the newer tools from Microsoft, and it adds that chat capability plus calling plus video conferencing, and it adds it right into the tools you're already using. So you could either say, well, you're going to use Outlook, you're going to use Excel, you're going to use all these things. You either say, well, let me look at one of these other third-party chat apps, or you said Teams, and it's all the same login, really cohesive. We're actually seeing the business world start to actually require 365 services. We've seen it from just users asking for it. The field is asking for more and more access to files and being able to share things and access stuff. And hey, I'm in the field, I have a tablet, why can't I look at my drawings? Why can't I look at the Excel file? So Microsoft 365 enables that. We're also seeing some contractors that are running their entire projects on Microsoft 365. So anyone who wants to collaborate with them on anything is going to need Microsoft 365. We actually kind of had to do a rushed implementation of a couple of the features for someone because they were starting a project and the person they were working with on it was using that 100% and they had to have it, and it was the only way they were going to get access to all their documents. It's also where Microsoft wants you to be. So that means you probably want to be there. Microsoft's putting all their money and time and effort and features and reliability and enhancements into the 365 platform. And where they put your focus, it makes sense for you to want to be there. They are not putting as much focus on some of the legacy platforms. And that means it's going to get more and more uncomfortable to be on them. People are going to say, why doesn't it have this feature? Or why can't I do this one thing? And it's because they're not, those legacy platforms, Microsoft is not putting in that same amount of time and effort. So let's get to the good stuff. We're going to go through a couple of the primary core features here of the Microsoft 365 platform. This is a massive, massive platform, but we're going to cover the core. There's Excel, Word, PowerPoint, and Outlook. These are called Microsoft apps now. They used to be called Office apps. Now they're called Microsoft apps. If you've never used these, you're probably in the wrong meeting. So we're not going to do a demo of any of these. You know how they work. You're probably in them every day. But we'll talk about a couple quick highlights about the 365 flavors. So first, they have continuous updates. Super handy. I'm sure you all get the emails from us about things like Office 2010 is no longer supporting this, or Office 2007 has been end of life, and all those things. So these apps get continuous updates, which is great for security, great for new features, and really convenient. Their new features do come pretty regularly. Most of the time, they just kind of happen in the background, and you might stumble on them later, and they're pretty unintrusive. Every once in a while, you get a little surprised, but usually they give you a way to flip that new feature off if you want to. You can install this on up to 5 computers per user. So you can't just make one account and install it on 5 different computers. That's, besides the fact that that's out of compliance with Microsoft, it also introduces almost immediate difficulty. Whenever you're using a shared login for anything, Microsoft 365 included, it opens up quite a few doors. We had a recent situation where someone had a cloud storage platform. They were using shared login. Everybody shared one account. They had a pretty primary person leave, and it caused a little bit of headache to deal with that. So it's installed to 5 computers per user, meaning you put on your workstation, your laptop, and your home PC if you want. You can also install it on up to 5 mobile devices. So in some cases, mobile devices actually do require a license for things like editing in Excel. Usually it has something to do with like the size of the screen. So iPads over a certain screen size, you can't edit Excel files unless you have a Microsoft Apps license, which you can get through 365. It's deeply integrated with OneDrive and SharePoint. Those are the cloud storage services, and we'll get to talk about those a little bit later. And the web versions are surprisingly cool. So a lot of people have heard about, you can use Office on the web, you can use Word on the web, you can use Excel on the web, and everybody kind of looks down on it, like, oh, that sucks. And for a long time it did. More recently, I was checking these out, and they've actually added some really cool things. Like you can, while you're editing a Word document, you can put a little @ sign and tag someone, and it's going to pop up and create a task for them automatically, send them an email, let them know, and link them back to it. It's pretty sweet. That's one of their brand new features that they're, I think they're in the process of rolling out right now. Certain versions can be used on shared computers. So this gets a little technical, but we'll touch on it. A shared computer is something like your terminal server, or if you're in the Syscon hosted environments, basically anything where you have more than one person logging into it at one time. You do need the higher level licenses for those. So you'll have to make sure that you have a version that includes that. Don't worry, we'll help. Make sure you have the right one. Make sure you know if you need it. It's something we think about a lot. Probably my favorite thing on this list is no more buying boxes of Office. I remember when we were doing a pretty big, dealing with that Windows 7 end of life situation, replacing tons of PCs. I remember seeing an open shipping box. There had to be 50 boxes of Microsoft Office in there. So you don't have to do that anymore. It's all going to be tied to your account and in one place. The next thing that's a core service is Exchange Online. So this is your email stuff. A lot of people call it like Outlook, but Outlook is the program to access your email. Exchange Online is where your email lives. So all that storage and your contacts and all of that good stuff sitting out in the cloud. So Exchange Online is Exchange email hosted by Microsoft. If you have your email hosted with us, Syscon hosted email, we use Exchange that Syscon manages. Exchange Online is Exchange that Microsoft manages. If you have your email still at your office, sitting on one of your physical servers, there's a really strong chance you're using Exchange on your servers that you manage. So because it's still using that same primary kind of platform of Exchange, you're still going to get all the good stuff you're used to, like, well, email, obviously, calendar, contacts, all that stuff. It's super easy to log into. Some people, it gets a little funny when they're logging into it. You got to know your domain username, which is clear if you're logging in from the office, but may not be clear to those people that just have email accounts in the field. So with the Exchange Online, you just log in with your email address, super easy. The anti-spam is actually included in this version. Some people do still choose to use a third-party anti-spam tool on top of this if they really want to get like aggressive with it, but there is a default version of anti-spam included that works pretty well. There's email archiving included with this. So if you are an email hog, you have a 100 gig mailbox, you're running out of space all the time, there's even an option for unlimited email archiving. Probably better to just clean it up and maybe reevaluate some of the things you're emailing and share it a little differently. But if you don't want to do that, you can get the unlimited version of email archiving. The shared mailboxes are also included as part of the Microsoft 365 platform. So if you have like an info @ or a help @ or something like that, that's actually included. It doesn't cost you an additional license to have that, which is pretty handy. It can't be one of those mailboxes where like it's info @ but someone logs in as that user, that's a little bit different. But those actual shared mailboxes where they're not actually tied to any user, payroll at, it's a pretty common one, AP at. So if you have 10 of those, which isn't uncommon, saves you 10 licenses. There is a message encryption available. So in some of the licenses, this is included. And some of you really need this and you know about it. It's worth diving into. Not a ton of people use this, but it's pretty cool that you can use all part of the same feature. There's also advanced threat protection, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's a bunch of advanced tools that help protect your email from threats. We won't go into that too much. It's pretty cool. It's included with some of the licenses, not all, but it has some really nice features that for some of those added security elements. If that's everything you need, you're not alone. Office apps, email, that is totally fine. Microsoft 365 is an awesome way to deliver those two things. It is a massive suite of services. There are so many things, but you don't need to use them. Those two, lots of people stop there, totally fine. But let's check out those other features just in case maybe you see something you like. So don't get overwhelmed by the rest of this stuff. A lot of people don't use it. Some people love it, up to you. So Microsoft Teams, have to imagine you have all heard about this in some way or another over the last few months. It's gotten a ton of press during this pandemic. The growth rate has been out of control. It's been pretty cool. So what is Microsoft Teams? Teams is a chat app for group chats, one-on-one chats, calling. It's integrated with your services, but the teams and channels for group topics. So you can use, this is the Teams program. Here's the Teams section of it. And so I have like my sales and marketing team, and I have my monthly reports channel. So you can keep all your conversations related to those monthly reports in one spot, and you can have a pretty well-organized conversation about it. You can see there's replies and everything. So the teams are for your group conversations. There's also a chat section here for the one-on-one conversation. So, hey, are you coming to this meeting? Or what's that web link again? You know, those quick questions, you can do that from the chat. This is like a classic group text message or one-on-one text message. There's video voice calls with screen sharing. Mentioned this earlier. This is very convenient, very helpful, and there's a decent chance it would save you a few licenses. A lot of people have picked up licenses for Zoom or GoToMeeting or one of those other tools. In many cases, you can drop those and use this instead. Saves you a login, saves you a license. It is deeply integrated with other 365 services. Over here, I have my files, which is integrated with the 365 storage. I have my calendar, which is integrated with the calendar that you normally see in Outlook. There's each person here, that is their same user that they're using for their email and all that. It's very handy. There's tons of integrations, and it's really great. There's a powerful search to find what you need. Search is an underrated feature. When you're looking for something and you can't remember exactly where it was, this search is awesome. Just type it in, it'll search everywhere. You can search somewhere specific. Pretty easy to do. There's also business voice as an option. It is an additional add-on for that, where you can actually use Teams for your voice over IP, your business phones. This is definitely a phase 2 kind of thing. You want to be on Teams, settled, using it, happy with it, loving it, on it for a while, comfortable, and then maybe look at integrating your business voice and to keep even more stuff in one place. So OneDrive, this is one of the cloud storage tools that comes with Microsoft 365. So this OneDrive, you can kind of think about as your personal cloud storage. These are the documents that are just for your reference. Maybe your own notes from a meeting, maybe a few in progress documents, maybe something you, maybe your own review that you've been working on, and things like that. This is accessible from any device with no VPN required. It is accessible securely from any device with no VPN required. So that is really convenient and a great ability for people to get what they need, especially in the field with mobile devices and such. So OneDrive has a feature called Files on Demand. This is maybe a little bit technical, but it's really, really powerful, helpful. So it's worth talking about a little bit. Files on demand means that these files always look like they're here, but they only are on my computer when I actually want them to be. So in this column here that says status, I have a green check, which means it's on my computer because I probably used it recently. Here I have a green filled in check, which means that I said I always want this to always be on my computer. So I just right clicked and said always keep on my device. And down here, this is the really cool part. These all have these little blue clouds. They are not on your laptop at all. It means they're not taking up space. They're not available if you lose that laptop. There's no, this file isn't even on there. That's a really cool thing. But then when you open the file, you just double click on any of them, it's going to open it up. It's going to instantly pull in that information, pull it down. It's pretty seamless to the user. Very cool. So what if a file is stored in your OneDrive folder, there's auto saving and auto versioning, which can be pretty helpful. Some people do like to turn that off, the auto save feature, because they're not used to whatever. It's a simple toggle at the top of the screen, very easy to do. There's also live co-authoring. So if a file is stored in your OneDrive, you can have two people working on the file at the same time, and you can actually see updates live from the other person. Larry and I were playing with it with a notepad, a note-taking tool the other day, and it was very surprisingly almost instant. I would say within 3 seconds, we were drawing on it. It was really cool. You can share files securely, and securely meaning both the files are sent securely and you can secure it with policies. So if you don't want a file to be shared through this, you can do some things to lock that down and prevent that. There are a million security options within OneDrive for locking things down, locking down what can be shared, how it's shared, and all of that. You can even make it so that the OneDrive, this storage, you can only access it from a computer that's either at your office, or you can make it so it's only accessible from a computer that's joined to your domain. So you have some good options. The access files from any device sometimes make people a little bit worried because you don't need a VPN, but they're very secured in a little bit different ways, but still extremely secure using these tools. So SharePoint, some ways you can think about it like OneDrive's big brother. SharePoint is your company cloud storage. OneDrive is just for the stuff you're typically working on, or maybe you're sharing one file with one person to like review it and make sure it's okay. SharePoint's about that company cloud storage. So things like here's our example of SharePoint and our digital assets for the web, or our elevator pitch that I want everyone to be able to open up and talk about at any point. Again, you can access files from any device, no VPN required. You do not have to use a web browser, I promise. Usually when people are talking about SharePoint, as soon as they say the word SharePoint, they're like, yeah, but I don't want to have to use everything through a browser. You don't. And that's largely because of the magic of files on demand, which is what I was just talking about. So you can use SharePoint kind of like how you use a network drive right now. And you can, this is for Kintoso, the company. Here's my SharePoint documents from Mark 8 project team. And this is in file browser on a computer, not through the web. It's also accessible through web if you want to, but you can access those files right on your computer through a file browser like you're used to. Lots of people leave it at that. That's typically where I like to leave it. But you can also use SharePoint as a collaborative intranet, and you can customize page layouts. So you can do like documentation, and you can embed different like planning boards in it and connect it to things and automate tasks. There's so much you can do with it. Like I said, lots of people just leave it as they're using it for their storage. That's totally okay. Once that's dialed in, if you want to try it out for this, totally fine. But I wouldn't say that everyone's ever going to want to be there or be appropriate for them to get there. So the next thing I'm going to go through is a couple bonus apps. I call them bonus apps because they are not the reason you go to Microsoft 365. You wouldn't move just for that. And usually people aren't going out actively trying to find these, but they're really cool tools and services that are deeply integrated with what you have, including your license, and can really be helpful once you have those core services that we just went through all dialed in. So one of them is Microsoft Lists. This is extremely new, probably just a month old. You can almost think about it like combining Excel with a to-do type management. Some people use it to like manage marketing campaigns and things like that. It's pretty powerful, it's pretty new. There's Power Automate. This, a lot of you will never ever touch. Some people often refer to as like a citizen developer, somebody who does those little tech related things at your company, but they don't actually write any programming. They just kind of get into the nitty gritty of the tech. You can do stuff like this, like automating tasks, like each day at this time, automatically get this information and send it with a PDF to these people. It's very powerful. A lot of people will never ever use it, which is totally fine. There's Microsoft To Do. It's a to-do app. Sure, that's pretty clear. It's Microsoft Forms. It's for creating forms. Again, really clear. Some people will do things like they'll take their forms, use Power Automate to send that info to lists, which then will create a to-do. So that's the kind of integration that you can use all between these. It's also Planner, which I kind of think would be the most likely one of these. That's actually To-Do is probably the most likely because it's so easy, but Planner is probably the most notable one that you might use. If you're familiar with like a Kanban board type thing where you have, I don't know if you can see from this screen, but there's little like tickets and tasks in different phases, and you just drag the tickets and you assign them to different people. It's helpful for like dealing with project management. Usually not so much construction project management, it might be, but more like internal office type things. And it is available from mobile. And actually, if you check out this background, you might notice that that is Teams right there, because they're accessing their planner right from their Teams channel, which is really cool. So those deep integrations are why these can be so helpful and such big, easy wins, because it's all just right there, right where you need it, right where you are. So business security, we could do an 8-hour webinar on all the business security that's in 365. I'm going to basically just mention the topics. We pay a ton of attention to this, and you should know it exists, but you probably won't need to do a lot. A lot of it happens in the background. So one of the things it has is MFA, which is multi-factor authentication. You probably use it now for things like when you log into the bank and you get a text message sent to type in the code. The Microsoft 365 has a way cooler version where you have an app on your phone. And when you log into, let's say, Outlook on the new computer, it'll pop up on your phone and say, do you approve this? which is more convenient, but also more secure. There's Microsoft Defender, which is actually a suite of tools in itself, but it's things to, it's like an antivirus firewall, computer firewall, not company firewall. And it allows you to use that for your antivirus potentially for your computer. This is not appropriate for everyone, and it's important to do it correctly. So if you're going to use this, you have to make sure it's set up correctly at a company level and you're reviewing it and all those things. So this doesn't mean, hey, just drop your other antivirus, start using this right tomorrow. It requires a little planning. Intune is a really cool one. It's a mobile device management, or often referred to as endpoint management platform. So you can use this to manage like your iPads in the field, your laptops. You can even use it on all your workstations. It's really cool, and it's included with the Business Premium specific, Microsoft 365 Business Premium license, and some of the other licenses as well. Azure Information Protection is, I think, one of the coolest things ever. It's also very technical. So I feel like the shortest version of it is you create these things called sensitivity labels, which is like, how sensitive is this file? And you could call it ultra sensitive. And then you set up some rules around that and say, this is only accessible by these 2 people, or it's only accessible from these devices or something, or you can't copy paste out of it. I really like that one. So if you try to copy paste from an Excel file into your Gmail, the user actually gets an alert saying, hey, if you do this, your company will be notified that you took this out of here. That's against policy. Are you sure you want to continue? And so that's pretty cool. And you can block things from screenshots, and it can even automatically detect that there's credit card numbers in there and then block screenshots. It's very powerful, very cool, very technical, and pretty automated though. Conditional access, this is the term for things like I mentioned before, where I said you make it so it's only accessible from computers that are joined to your domain. That's what we conditional access. You can also set things like, if a user hasn't logged in for 14 days, then re-prompt them to log in for that device. So if you have Outlook on your computer, and on 2-week vacation, you come back, it's gonna pop up and say, hey, you need to log in again. This is a pretty important security feature. So if you have an old laptop, since you all do, sitting in the back desk somewhere, someone just walks home with it. You know, it's been there for 6 months, someone just walks home and opens it up. Maybe that laptop wasn't as secure as you thought. With conditional access, those credentials would have expired, and it'll make them log in again and keep your stuff secure. Windows Virtual Desktop is, I'm so excited about it. It is the next generation of cloud hosting, or it's the platform, I should say, that Syscon's next generation of cloud hosting is going to be mainly built on. It's included, or part of the licensing is included with some of the Microsoft 365 licensing, and we're actually going to have a webinar on that coming up, so I'll come back to that again. But I'm super excited about it. It's so cool. Talk about that for hours. So those were a lot of the core services. That's the kind of stuff that is included in the licenses that most likely you will would all be appropriate for you. There are also some add-ons, add-ons like Power BI. If you've ever asked me about a report, I probably mentioned this. I love this tool. I think it's so cool. I think it's so helpful. And it is a data visualization tool. So this tool is generally not included with the licenses you use. It would be added as an add-on, and that'd be very appropriate for it. But it allows you to pull data from a bunch of different sources and present it in a secure and beautiful, usually, way. And you can get to it from any device. So your computer, your phone, your tablet. This has been a very hot topic. I've been doing tons of Power BI projects for our clients and creating Power BI dashboards and reports for that pulls that Sage data and oftentimes like makes it available to the project manager while they're out in the field. They can bring up their phone real quick and look at their budget to actual on their job or something like that, or the last few change orders that were put in on that job. We've done some of these. It's been a really growing request, and I think it's only going to keep growing. So very cool. Use the same login, integrated with the services, all the good stuff. Microsoft Project is another add-on that a lot of people here probably have heard of. Some of you probably use it. In most of these licenses, it will actually include a view-only version of Microsoft Project. And then if you want the full version, you're gonna have to look at the add-ons for most cases. If you haven't heard of it, Microsoft Project is a project planning and management tool, extremely powerful, extremely huge. This little GIF is kind of showing a few of the actions. I'm sure it's telling a better story than I can about it. So Gantt charts are, I feel like a lot of people use it literally just for the Gantt charts. So those are the core services and a couple of my favorite add-ons. They are, there are so many more things. It's crazy, but the core services are the most important part. You may have heard of some other things, and there's a long list, but we don't have all week to cover it. So those are probably, what we covered today is probably the biggest part of that would apply to each person on today's call. So let's say you love it. What now? First step in the process would be to get ready. You're going to choose your core services, just the core services. What are the main 2 or 3 drivers that are having you move? Usually it's email and Teams. That's typically the answer we get. And then choose a couple champions. So champions is what Microsoft often refers to. These are your people that are going to be your daily users of this stuff, that are going to kind of like drive it forward, be your testers, help other people get on board, answer questions from each other. If you were, let's say, rolling out Teams to your project managers, and you are not a project manager, so you're not going to really know their true experience, what they're doing, how they're using it. You want to pick like a project manager to be the Teams champion or super user to help drive that forward and make sure everyone has what they need. Some people, that's not necessarily needed. It kind of depends on your team size, but it can be really helpful to have that super user or champion to help drive things forward. So once you've picked your core services and you picked your person who's going to help you drive that forward, usually the next step is the communication services from Microsoft. Generally, that means moving email to 365 and adding Teams. You could easily just do one or the other. You could do both. You actually could do neither if you wanted to, but they're usually pretty independent and helpful. This is where you'd want to start as your first step of what you'd implement in a very general sense. Obviously, it doesn't depend on what you dealt with in this. Typically, the next step would be to update the Microsoft apps. This is usually a pretty quick step. Just go to the computers, update the program to the newer version of Microsoft apps that's included with your license. Update the computers, update the servers. I love to do this kind of all at once, get it all done as part of the move. It can be really helpful. It's not always necessary. In some cases, people just wait till the next time they buy a computer. And other than that, they just leave the Office version they have right now unchanged. That's totally fine.
Hey, Chris, unless it's one of the end of life.
Yes, unless it's end of life, in which case, please call us today and let's get you off that version, because you shouldn't be on that version either way. Usually, if you're going to continue going, The next one would be storage. So your OneDrive and your SharePoint, you could do either and or both of these. And you could do them in any capacity. So maybe you use SharePoint for just one type of file, one big project you're going to use it for, and you're going to leave all the rest of your files the old way. That's fine. You can pretty much use these in whatever capacity that you want, and you can stop at kind of any point. So you could have stopped after updating apps, you could have stopped after updating storage, or if you've gotten your communication services, gotten your apps, you've gotten your storage, you're still loving it. Next one is to just dig in. There are so many of those bonus apps in there. There's extra features, really cool stuff. Oftentimes not requiring any sort of implementation, at least for you to use for small projects. Like maybe you wanted to start using Planner for yourself, for your month-end closing projects or your year-end closing project. You just start using it. There's not a, start playing with it. If you're going to roll it out as like, we're going to now use Planner to manage all of these projects across all departments, that would probably be worth a little more detailed planning. But just dig into those other services, try them out, use them, see what's worth kind of spreading the word on. If you're still loving it, still want more, last one is to expand. So adding those add-ins such as Power BI, such as Microsoft Project. This is totally optional. Some people never use them. There's actually some people where this Power BI project, these extra add-ons came way over here before they were even ready because they needed it for something. So they're not really ready for the whole 365 thing, but they need Power BI for this report, let's say. You can do it out of order. You kind of can do it whenever. It's convenient when you already have all the other stuff done, but not necessary. So these are common steps. Not everyone would do all of them, and not everyone would follow this exact order, but this is a pretty common approach, and you can pretty much stop at any time. You can generally skip any of them that you want, but there is kind of a laid out plan of what to expect from a most common scenario and what I would probably expect from most of the people on the call today. In addition to this plan, a very key element, staff training, communication. Make sure when you're adding teams, you tell people, one, that you're adding it, two, what to expect, maybe three, what your policies are on it. You know, you need to have that stuff as part of it, making sure that you do the training, you do the communication, everyone knows what they need. If you were to roll out OneDrive, not telling anyone how to use it and not telling anyone it's available, people are probably not going to love it. They may not even use it. So it's good to have those things.
Yeah, you know what, Chris, I would say for Teams, for instance, when we rolled it out, we did stop and consider a smaller group to play with it, have fun with it, get used to it, share back with us what was working, what wasn't. And then at a specific time, we decided, okay, everyone, this is our policy now. This is what we're using. This is how we're going to use it. And here are some of the protocols. Here's what's okay. And here's where we draw a few lines. And that, I think that really helped because we had a small subset that were like the super users, those champions who knew it inside out and backwards. And also they could work out details that we knew we were going to run into for the rest of the company.
And plus, I wrote the most fun emails ever for telling people about it, right?
Yes, you did. Yes.
So staff training, communication, sometimes it is very small, not a lot of it's needed, like, hey, we're going to update Office on your computer tomorrow. Sometimes that's all you need. Other times you want to do a little more. This was a ton. Don't get overwhelmed. Only using apps and email is 100% okay and generally recommended at least to start. So get those settled before you go on. Maybe apps, email, and Teams, because Teams is pretty great. But starting with that really small chunk, everyone already uses those Microsoft apps, those Office apps, Outlook, Excel, Word. Everyone already uses email. So an awesome place to start. and an okay place to finish. That's totally fine. You still can get a lot of benefits on the Microsoft 365. You don't need to use all the features. No one does. The feature list for these packages is thousands of words long. I've read them. You don't need to. I don't know that if I spent all day, every day, that I could use every single one, and I'm positive that not every feature would be useful, especially for us. So there are many on there that just, they're not useful for you, don't use it. These are packages that have way more than you could need, and usually you're getting a lot of bang for your buck after 2 services. After apps and email, generally that's enough bang for your buck with the 365 suite. Everything after that is just great. There's tons of training videos from Microsoft, so that staff communication, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You could even just send them, hey, watch this video. I actually talked to someone who said they rolled out Teams. I said, what did that look like for you? How did it go? They said they sent a 2-minute video from lynda.com to everyone and said, we're using Teams now. Here, watch this video. It's 2 minutes long. That was their whole conversation. That was it. It was a smaller team, and probably 15, 20 people or so, and it was that easy. It was really, some of them are that easy. So anyway, we are here to help. We love this stuff. I get really excited when there's a new release. I literally am like, let me read all the release notes. Let me see if there's anything that's gonna be useful to us or to our clients that we need to update on or anything like that. I get all excited. I don't think anybody else does.
I can vouch for that.
I usually have to pick and choose what I even share with Kathy because so many of them they're just totally irrelevant to her. I'm excited about them. She doesn't care. So all of the stuff, we love this stuff. Lots of people here love this stuff. We're gonna help you with the whole process. Don't feel like you need to go read the service description of Microsoft 365 Business Premium and tease out all the different iterations of Exchange Online and all that stuff. It's a ton of work. You don't need to do it. We already did it for you. Don't worry.
Yeah, and it can be overwhelming. I know we do have a couple of questions coming in. I will get to those shortly. Go ahead, Chris.
So we have the time for Q&A. I do have a demo environment up with some live samples and all of that, but I think we should take a couple questions. Maybe before we do the questions, real quick announcement coming soon. We have 2 webinars coming up that may be helpful and related to this topic. Syscon's next generation of hosting webinar, November 4th. It's going to be a new service from Syscon. It's for any of you that host your servers with Syscon. This is worth checking out. I am crazy excited about it. It might be the only thing I'm more excited about than 365 and Fit. I don't know. And then the other one, closing the year webinar. For those of you who are the finance people on today, this is probably the most important webinar of the year for the finance side. Maybe updating pay groups.
Yeah, I think it's one of our highest attending ones, yeah.
Yeah, so check out these dates. I don't think this one, we just decided on this date, so I don't think this one's up on our website yet, but it will be soon, and we'll send an email about it as well. So Q&A.
All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, first one. Carolyn's question is, can you set security levels by directory? We use Dropbox, and I assume this would replace Dropbox. So I know the answer, but I'm gonna let you talk, Chris.
Thank you for that question. I can't believe I didn't mention that. So I did mention that Teams can replace Zoom. OneDrive and SharePoint would replace Dropbox. Yes, you absolutely can set security permissions within there of who has access to what. They can be set at a few different levels, and they are set with the same user as like their email account, which means it's really easy to maintain. And like if you disable their Microsoft 365 account, they're going to get locked out of all of it. So I love the Dropbox. I love the permissions in here, and you absolutely can do that, and it's pretty great.
Yeah, I guess I would also add that we have run, Carolyn, I'm not saying you're doing this, but we've run into clients who are using one Dropbox account and lots of people are logging into it. Chris alluded to that before. That is not secure. That means everybody's got the same rights and permissions in OneDrive and SharePoint. You can actually be very specific about who has access to what. The next one, Chris, I have is from Sharon, and Sharon says, please speak to security on mobile devices with non-compliant employees who leave things open or unprotected or simple passwords, like password, or they can't remember their password. So the question is, speak to security on the mobile devices.
Yeah, this is a cool one. It is to get the best mobile devices security experience, you'd want to use that Intune feature, which is included with the Business Premium, Microsoft 365 Business Premium license. So if you have that license and you get everything set up, what you can do is you give them a company portal, is what it's called, and they can put that on their personal device without like enrolling the device, so it doesn't have the more aggressive mobile device management thing where you typically only put on company devices. So they can use that company portal, and it's this kind of little container that's on their personal phone, little container of security. And all the important company stuff stays in there, and they can still do whatever they want on their personal part, but you can lock down that little container of that company portal, and it can have your apps, it can have your data, all of that, and you can lock it remotely, wipe it remotely, all of those things. So in short, use Intune, use the company portal app. They can put on the personal device, and it's a little secure lockbox of your company stuff. Hope that answers.
Okay, good. I have another one. This is from Sean, who asks, can you share docs with people outside the company on either OneDrive or SharePoint? I'm so excited. I actually know the answer. Go ahead.
Yes, you can. And there are like a million ways to share it. One of them is the public link. You make a link public, anyone can get to it. Very rarely appropriate in business. Sometimes, very rarely. The other one is you can like invite them as a guest user, essentially, which is just you share it with them by their email address. It's not complicated or anything, but that way you can manage their permissions as if they were an extension of you. And you can do it by individual document, like this Word document, or you can even do it by SharePoint site. You can think about it like collection of folders. So you could say, I'm collaborating with this other company on this project. It's all here in SharePoint. I'm gonna give them access, and I'm gonna give them read only or read write.
Okay, so apparently you're sparking all kinds of ideas, because the follow-up question is, ultimately, would SharePoint replace our current shares directory, or do they do different things? So that is definitely the direction you can go. There are many things to consider: how they're accessed, who views them, security setup, all kinds of things like that. And of course, you want to make sure that with all these 365 licenses, that you have backups. So if right now it's on your shares on your server is being backed up. If you take some of those documents and you move them to SharePoint, security needs to be set up, and you need to be sure you're backing it up. So there are some other considerations, but absolutely, shared documents on a server can be moved to SharePoint, making them available company-wide with security fully backed up.
Yeah, it's got some really nice features with it. That is, I'd say that's kind of Microsoft's intention. But like Kathy said, don't go into it blind. Plan it.
Right. Sharing documents on your network shares, that's definitely going to take more planning. If you think about Chris's ladder of implementation or of taking on these products, definitely that one takes more planning. We are at the top of the hour, so I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Chris, if you're willing to share a few of those live site demo things, I think we could do that. If you need to drop off for another meeting, totally understand. If you have a few minutes, Chris does have a few examples that he can share with you. Either way, if you have to go, thank you so much for joining us. We hope you learned some new things and you're not too overwhelmed with this. And we are available for follow-up. And we will be running a regular educational series in our newsletter beginning January 1st, and there will be subsequent webinars on this. As more and more of our clients move into these products, we want to keep everyone educated. Go ahead, Chris.
All right, so little demo here. I have this environment and I'm logged in as a test user. This isn't our stuff. Today I'm Megan Bowen, and this is Teams. So you have all the things you kind of expect in a messaging app. Here's my account, here's my settings, Zoom, set a status, all the things you probably are used to seeing. Then in here, I have my Teams US sales, and I see Sales West has some activity. Looks like the West Coast Team Initiative. Congratulate the sales staff. You can open this up and have a reply. Great work. Right there. So you can jump into meetings from this, and I can even look at the files from the Sales West team. Here's my signed agreements. And these files, even though I'm accessing in Teams, it's so seamless, they're actually stored in SharePoint. So lots of seamless transition between that. You can also jump over here to chat and have the quick, are you going to be late? Quick message. Here's a file that was shared with me that I can preview right in Teams. Oh, looks like I don't have access. So a secure feature right there. I can request access. It's going to send an email to log in and all that stuff. So securely locked down from that standpoint. I have my calendar, which is Outlook calendar. So that's
But one of the great things about the calendar, Chris, is I could book a meeting and the Teams link will already be there. When they open up their calendar for the time of my meeting, they can click that link.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where now I have to stop and create GoToMeeting things, send the links to everyone within Teams. I can set it up at the time I book the appointment.
Exactly. A lot of the questions today were on the SharePoint side, so real quick preview on that. This is when I just go to office.com. I like to often start here, office.com, because it has all these different apps. It's got some recent stuff, recommended, all that good stuff, my OneDrive, my SharePoint. But I'm gonna click my SharePoint icon. And this is when you go to SharePoint on the web. There's cool graphics. If I go to my project team, I'm gonna have my planner board right in here. Oh, that one's moved on. Check that one off. You know, this is documents and videos and special stuff, all that good stuff. But from the document sharing perspective, if I go to just documents here, so I'm in my Mark 8 project team, and here's my list of documents.
So this Mark 8 project team would be like, I could go to my P drive and I could find the file folder for this project. And here would be all of the things that would be under there. There might be some Word documents, might be some subfolders, Excel, I might have some PDFs. I'd be able to see all that, right?
Yeah, so that would be the P drive subfolder scenario would be the old version. New version, you can see it here, or I promise it wasn't web only. If I open up a file browser, so this is just a regular file browser, here's the web version. On my computer, my SharePoint, what I have synced, Mark 8 project team. Does that look familiar? Pretty all cohesive right in between it. And it's gonna sync up really fast. New doc. Between them, send it to the cloud, all that good stuff. Look at that, it just popped right up. New doc. So we have our SharePoint site here. We have our folders here. And then if I go to Teams, I go here, I find my Mark 8 project team. And this one, see design, digital asset. So I would click on any of those channels and go to my files. So I went to my digital assets here, go to that, and they're the same between them. So it's not that you have a million copies of these. It's just you can get to them where you need them. Microsoft is coming to you wherever you are, whether it's your browser, on your computer, Teams, phone.
Yeah, and that does seem to be some of the questions I'm getting. So it would be, for instance, I can log into my hosted server over our terminal server through my RDP shortcut, and I can get to my P drive. I could be in the office and I'm on my network and I can get to my P drive. I could be on the road or I should say in Arizona, fire up my VPN and I can see that same P drive. It doesn't mean I have 3 places for my P drive. It means I have 3 windows to get to that info. So here I have a window through Teams that I could do, or I could go to office.com and go through that window, or I could actually pull up my file browser just like I was looking for a document and I could find my folders. But they're not multiple versions, it's just 3 different ways to get at the same information.
Yep.
That is some of the questions I'm getting, so.
And one of the coolest things is it's already included. You're not paying extra for that storage. So that storage is included with your license. It's already covering some of the other stuff.
Which was one of the other questions. How much is included for the SharePoint storage?
For an average company, more than you would ever use.
Because it's per user.
It's for OneDrive, it's 1 terabyte per user. And on average, there are many different versions, but most of the people that are on today would probably use that version. It's 1 terabyte per user. And then on SharePoint, it's generally 10 terabytes per company, plus a certain amount of gig per user as you add more people. So it gets a little complicated, but the number is huge. So you're probably not even close to that.
It's a generous number. Okay, good. I do see a couple people are needing to get off, and we are at 8 minutes past the hour. So was there anything else you wanted to wrap up, Chris, just kind of an overview, or is there something else in your demo that you want to be sure to share?
No, I think that covers it. I thank you all for joining. I hope you all learned some stuff, and I hope you all are as 20% as excited as I am would probably do it.
Great, great. Well, thank you, Chris. That was amazing. Lots to cover here. And you did really good keeping it moving along, so that was good. We will be sharing additional parts of this, and we're going to be breaking it down by sections so that you can dive into the ones that might have caught your ear. If you are a client of ours, you can certainly engage with our techs or give us a call at the office, and we can move forward with some additional information or get you plugged in. Maybe you want to kick off Teams. You've been using it because you had to with the general contractor, and you want to start using it internally. We can get you signed up and going and give you a hand rolling that out to your team. Thanks again for your time. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Chris, for putting all this together, and we will talk to all of you soon. So have a great rest of your week.
Have a great week.